Yeah, so I'm Ali. I think some of you know me, and some of you don't. I'm married to Jason. I have 3 children, 2 married daughters, and a son of 20, nearly 21, and I have just become a nana, a granny. So we have a little grandson of 6 months old, and we are loving it. We're loving the season of our life, and it's beautiful, and we are excited. And yes, we have been in Northern Ireland. Thank you, Paul, for your description of our beautiful nation. But I actually think you're right. It is brutal at times. It is challenging. It is difficult, but God is working. And how many of you know that we don't always live on mountains, right? I mean, how many know that walking this walk with Jesus is not always a mountaintop experience? And one of the things that we've noticed in Northern Ireland, in the way that the gospel is presented, it's like this. Come to Jesus and He will take away all your problems. Come to Jesus and your life will be perfect. And so we're kind of scraping up people who've made that, raised their hands in a big crusade or something and went, why didn't my problems go away? Why was my life not a mountaintop experience? I've had some pretty rubbish things. And just as Mel was saying, life is tough. Life is difficult. There's struggles and there's things that we have to face. And so I did not grow up in a Christian or believing home. I said to the ladies yesterday, my mum was an atheist, and actually she was involved in the occult. My father was an atheist, and he had no knowledge of God. And so I didn't grow up understanding the gospel, but I got radically born again when I was 20 years old. Kind of like a Paul on the road to Damascus story. God encountered me lavishly with His love and with His grace. And I said yes, and I've gone on a journey of saying yes to Jesus no matter what. So we've been involved in church planting in India. We were missionaries there for 5 years. We've planted churches in the south of Ireland, and now we are in the north of Ireland. And our passion is for God's church. And can I just say, you are a beautiful church. I was standing up worshiping this morning, and I was like, oh man, can I just take you guys home? I don't think that's possible. Can I kind of kidnap some of you and just put you in my handbag and take you home? Because I kind of want to keep some of you. You are beautiful. God's bride is beautiful, and I have the privilege of traveling and going to many countries and speaking and being a part of God's church, and it just never ceases to amaze me. Of wherever I go, it's just the most beautiful thing to be a part of His people in different nations and different places. And so it is a privilege to be with you today and yesterday at the ladies' event. There were fewer men at the ladies' event yesterday. Kind of was looking at them going, how did you get in here? Because our men are banned from our ladies' events, and they're always begging, can they come? So I reckon I'm going to go and say, well, when I went to Kingsgate, there were men there, so maybe the men can come to our ladies' events.
We learned something.
I'm going to share with you this morning. I often share, God speaks to me often. He prophetically gives me pictures. He speaks to me through dreams and visions and even just things that happen in my life. And that's often the way God begins to birth the word for a church or for a place. So I'm going to share something that's a deeply personal word, probably a deeply personal message of some of my own journey. So there's a bit of testimony involved. But quite a few months ago, I was in America with my husband, and we were speaking in a church. We were doing some ministry, but we had these wonderful friends, and part of the way we work with them is they fly us out to do ministry, which we do on the 2 Sundays, but then we have a lovely week in between where we get to walk on a private beach in Florida, perfect weather, and when you go on holiday and you have to fight for your corner on a beach. Have you done that? I hate that. I hate having to muscle my way to put a little towel down and do that. But this place, it's miles of empty beach. There's no one there, it's just your beach. You feel like a millionaire for like a week. I just kind of take my coffee down, walk off the deck down onto my own private beach, park off for the day. It's just living like a millionaire for a week. I just love it. It's my 1 week of the year where I feel like I'm kind of somebody important, right? But there's a bit of an etiquette around this beach. And is that all the houses that are on the beach, there's a few houses along this beach, and they're all like 13, 14, 15 bedroom mansions. And they belong to very important people. So there's kind of an unspoken etiquette that when you walk on the beach in the morning or in the afternoon, you don't really go and talk to people. It's kind of private. Like, these are very well-to-do businessmen and businesswomen, and they're all in their little gym gear, and they're doing their little power walk, on the beach, and with their headphones on, that kind of thing. And it's kind of the etiquette. You don't really stop and talk. Now, I'm a rather friendly person. I'm one of these guys that when you walk down the road, I'm like, hi, make eye contact. Oh, nice day, isn't it lovely? And you don't do that in Florida on a millionaire beach. You just kind of put your head down and you do your little walking along, with your headphones on and your little sports gear and all of that. So I try to be the part. I get in my little shorts and my little thingies and I'm trying to be a millionaire, sunglasses and doing my thing. And I never talk to anyone. But when I was there this last time, there was this guy that I kept noticing that was walking the beach and kind of he just didn't talk to me clearly because he was a millionaire and I wasn't, so he ignored me the whole time. And if he's walking towards me, and I walk in this direction, there's this kind of unspoken thing, you kind of put your head down and he goes there and I go like this. And you don't make eye contact and you don't talk. I don't know why it is. It just is. It's Florida, it's millionaires, that's how they are. So for the whole week I was there, I kept walking past the same guy, and I never made eye contact, I never spoke to him. But here's the story I'm going to share. At the start of this week, I arrived in Florida, obviously there to minister, to be a blessing, but I arrived there in a rather somewhat disheveled state. I landed off the plane feeling rather, maybe a little bit like a fake, if I'm honest, because I was there, and my husband and I, to pour into the church, to be a ministry to the church. But I just felt kind of dead inside. I felt dry and brittle. I felt like I had nothing left in my tank. I felt tired, I felt burnt out, I felt worn out. But you kind of get up and you shake yourself down and you go, well, they've flown us all the way here to be a blessing, and we just need to do that. So the first day I'm walking on this beach and I'm crying out to the Lord. Sorry if I get emotional, but I do when I preach. I'm crying out to the Lord and I'm saying, Father, I feel like I've lost my sparkle. That was the words I used. I want you to remember that word because it's important to what I'm going to share. I said, Lord, I feel like I've lost my sparkle. I just have lost that thing, And I generally think I'm quite a sparkly person. I like bling. I always have a bit of bling. But I think it's something that I just love to show the joy of the Lord, and I love to show the life and the vibrancy of God. But on that occasion, I was walking and going, Father, I just feel like I lost my sparkle. I know what I'm meant to do, how to do it, but it just feels like I'm going through the motions. Have you ever felt like that? It doesn't feel real to me. And so I'm crying out to the Lord, and every day my 6 o'clock in the morning walk as the sun was rising along this beautiful desolate beach, I'm saying, Jesus, I've lost my sparkle. I don't know how to get back my sparkle. I don't know what to do. I know what to do. For those of you who don't know, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a counselor, so I kind of have all the tools. It's quite frustrating actually when you're trained like I am, because I kind of know what to do. And then I have to do it myself. And I tell my clients what to do. Like, honey, it's not that hard, you do this. And then it's me, and I'm like, God, this is hard, I don't know how to do this. But I was really broken, and I was really, really frustrated. And I said to the Lord every day, I said, before I go back to Ireland, I need you to speak to me. Because I don't want to go back even more empty. I need to go back. And we were facing some challenging things back home in Ireland. And I felt like I have to get myself in a good space before I go back. And every day I walked that beach, nothing happened. I didn't hear God's voice. I didn't hear him speak. It was just the sound of the waves, the sound of the wind, and my footprints walking along the sand. And I felt lonelier and more frustrated and more alone as I walked that desolate beach. And on the last morning, we were to come home, we'd done our ministry stuff. I said to my husband Jason, I said, God isn't speaking. I've lost my sparkle. I feel dead inside. I feel like I've lost my joy. I don't know what to do. I can't go home like this. Please pray for me. God needs to speak. I've got one more day. And so I walk along the beach, my normal little track, walking along. I love to pick up shells. I love picking up shells to kind of remind me of things. And as I'm walking, I noticed this guy that I hadn't spoken to, that you're not supposed to speak to, and he's walking ahead of me. Now there's an etiquette there too. If you're walking really fast, and he's walking slowly, you kind of slow down and notice that he stays ahead of you. You don't go past him, or if you did, you run past him very quickly, so you don't make eye contact. So he's ahead of me just there, and I'm kind of walking shells, and I want to pass him, and I don't really feel like jogging, so I'm kind of checking him out. He's just ahead of me. How far back should I stay? And instantly he turns around, like spins around, and starts storming towards me. But his eyes are locked on me. Like, this really intense, he's just like this. Well, I'm panicking because I'm in Florida. I don't know how these guys walk here, but I don't know if I've done something wrong. Was I not meant to be on the beach today? Is it his beach on a Wednesday and I'm not meant to be there on a Wednesday? And he's walking towards me with this intense look in his face, and I'm freaking out. So I'm not sure what am I meant to do. Am I my turn and I'll walk this way? I don't know the etiquette. I kind of know the etiquette, but I don't know that. So I'm just going, what do I say? Hi? Do I look at him? And he walks over to me. He doesn't greet me. He doesn't say hello. He just walks over to me and he puts 2 shells in my hand. He just hands me these shells. I've got a story around them. He puts them in my hand. Doesn't say hello. Doesn't say anything. Remember, a whole week he's ignored me. He doesn't say anything. He just goes like this. He goes, I need to tell you a story about some shells. That's what he says. So I'm going, what? I'm listening. This is cool. And he hands me the shell, and there's one shell. I can pass them around. You can actually have a look at them. Paul, you can look at them as I do this. There's one shell that's kind of dull. It's white and it's kind of a little bit dull, but the other one looks like it's been covered in nail polish. It's really, really shiny. And he says to me this, he says, very interesting here, he says, this shell over here has lost its sparkle. Uses the same words. And he says to me, he says, but the other one is really shiny. I'm going to tell you why. He says there's 2 types of shells. There's one shell that comes up from the bed of the sea and it gets tossed and turned along the sand. And sand is kind of like sandpaper, and it rubs off that beautiful veneer of the shell. He says, but then you get other shells, and if they come straight up from the depth and they haven't done the whole thing of years of going along the sand bed and being gritted away by the sand, they come up and they're beautifully shiny. And he says, this shell, and he hands me the one, he says, is a shell that's lost its sparkle. But this shell came straight up from the depths, and it's retained its shine. I thought I just needed to tell you that, and he turns around and walks away. Okay. Lord, you're speaking. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today, is the story about a shell. And the story about me who lost my sparkle. You see, the first thing that spoke to my heart and was revealed to me through this happening was that I had become jaded, I lost my sparkle, because I had moved out of the deep places with him. You see, the shell that stayed in the deep places, that hadn't gone through the whole little thing, kept its sparkle. It was shiny, it was glistening, it was beautiful. And I realized in my own life that I had moved away from just being in those deep places. That's why I lost my sparkle. God began to speak to me. I had allowed the difficulties, the stresses, to slowly grind away my shine. And it didn't happen instantly. I noticed it was over time. I just got less and less sparkly. Kind of just less and less who I am. Just lost slowly but surely. And it's like that sandpaper that over time makes that shell kind of dull and lifeless. It's still a beautiful shell if you look at my shells, but it doesn't have the same vibrancy and sparkle as the one that just came straight up from the depths. And what I realized is that that abrasive kind of sand is like things in our lives. Some of those things in our lives that grind away the sparkle, the joy, the life, the vibrancy that we should be carrying as sons and daughters of the Most High God. And so I guess I want to ask the question of all of us, because I had to ask me, what are the things that are like that abrasive sandpaper in your life? What are the things that are taking away that sparkle and that shine? I wrote a few things down. For me, it was over busyness. I realized that I allowed my life. I've gone into private practice, also alongside my husband leading a church. We do a lot of different things. The over busyness was just that slow grind where I noticed my times with the Lord were getting shorter, less kind of lengthy. It was just I didn't always have the time. So over busyness was taking away my sparkle. The next thing was discouragement. How many of us live with discouragement? Maybe it's the things that of life that just buffet us. It's like that little shell that gets buffeted by the waves and tossed along the seabed and ground away. We get ground down. You've heard that saying? We all feel a bit ground down. That's what happens. So discouragement. Sometimes it's misdirected focus. You think of the Mary and Martha. I would so love to stand here today and say, guys, I'm just the perfect Mary. I just sit at Jesus' feet all day. I spend so much time in his presence. I'm just a beautiful Mary. Oh my word, I am a Martha. I am a Martha. And I've had to learn to become more like Mary. But I have to confess I am a Martha. I'm that girl that just is always busy running around. I never stop. And I'm 54 and I'm going, Lord, it's taken all this time. I still haven't got it. I wish I could be more of a Mary. And I'm learning, just to say I am learning to be more of a Mary. But misdirected focus, we're so busy with things. It takes away our sparkle and our shine. Sometimes just simple distractions. This thing. I know you all hate us saying it, because pastors say it all the time, but this thing kills the life of God. And we've got to start taking notice and saying, I'm not going to just tolerate that. It kills the life of God. Social media, there's an endless scrolling. Then it's the comparisons, and then it's look at her life, it's much better than my life. It's toxic. But I realized in my life, all the endless scrolling, the comparison was taking away my sparkle. And then it could be things like hurt and unanswered prayer. I realized there had been hurts in my life, unanswered prayer in my life, things that I was crying out to God for and I wasn't seeing the answer. I just fell flat. And I lost my joy and I lost my sparkle. The second thing that God showed me through the story was this. He said, you have forgotten the art of being still. Oswald Chambers says this, I like this quote. He says, the busyness of things obscures our concentration on God. The busyness of things obscures our concentration on God. With our attention scattered in a million different directions, as we all do in this first world context that we live in. Often, the first thing that goes is that undiluted, stopping, spending time, and being still. We're just all too busy. And instead of just going, oh, well, that's just how I am, perhaps it's time to stop and say, how do I shift that narrative a bit? How do I become a little bit less busy? How do I become a bit more still? And I've been learning that, the art of stillness. Almost the sacredness of stillness. And sometimes I found in my life, I would have my quiet times, my still times, but I would be doing like a machine gun, praying to Jesus, Jesus, this, Jesus. And he's been challenging me and saying, there's something about just sitting, letting his presence just envelop you, just sitting. Getting away from the clutter and the pounding thoughts and just being in his presence. And if you think of that little shell that sits on the bottom of the sea, it's just still. The water rushes over it, but it's not letting itself be that abrasive sand moving over it to take away its shine. And I've got a whole lot of scriptures here. Isaiah 43, verse 1, it says, but those who hope in the Lord, we know the scripture well, will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and grow not weary. They will walk and not faint. That sense of just hoping in him, sitting in his presence, being still. Proverbs 3:24, when you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. There's just hundreds. I've got loads of scriptures here of just really understanding that when we come to him, there's something sacred about that stillness. And really making it a decision not to get caught up in the busyness. And this is a battle I face daily in my busy life too, and it's finding that time. But the world around us is moving so fast. Have you noticed that? I just noticed it. I put on the news, it's so fast. Everywhere is fast. Everybody's in a hurry. It's all about ready meals and this and that. People have stopped becoming used to just being able to have this moment of still and pause. One of the tools I use in my counseling with my clients is I give them all a stop sign. a little like laminated stop sign. Every one of my clients gets a stop sign from me, and it's got some words on it, but it's about teaching them to stop. Just stop. Rest. Be still. Stop running around. Just stop. There's something so beautiful about understanding what it means. And of course, the most famous scripture we all know is Psalm 46, verse 10. It says, "Be still and know that I am God." He wants to teach us about stillness. And then the third thing that God got me thinking around the story was that sand can either rub away all our sparkle, which it does, or we can allow the sand, those difficult situations, the discouragements, the hurts, the frustrations, all of those things, to turn it into something beautiful. So, I am a typical girl in many ways. I do like jewelry. And diamonds are great. I mean, what girl's not going to want a diamond? Let's face it. If Jason comes up and gives me a string of diamonds, I'm hardly going to turn him down. But I have said to him over the years, I actually much prefer pearls. I don't really like diamonds as much as I prefer pearls. And the reason I prefer pearls is that there's something about a pearl that inspires me every day. And so I'm not wearing them today, but at home, I wear a lot of pearls. And I have pearls, different colored pearls. I have different types of pearls. And I love pearls because they tell me a story every day of the grace of God and how He works. And so I have one of my pearls here. It's a beautiful pink pearl. And it's, Christine, when you come here, I want you to do something for me. Did you feel that pearl for me? And tell me, what does it feel like? What does it look like? Okay, so I would use the word iridescent. I think it feels quite hard. It's not soft at all. Smooth. It's very, very smooth. It's almost like silk and velvet, isn't it? It's something about when you look at a pearl, it looks like something. But actually, there's something quite unique about the pearl. Does anybody know how you tell a real pearl from a fake pearl? Anybody here know? There you go. So do you want to come and do this for me? And you're going to hate me. Will you put that between your teeth and tell me what it feels like? A bit gritty. It's like sandpaper, isn't it? So that it looks smooth, doesn't it? It looks smooth. It looks like, as Christine said, beautiful and glassy and shiny. But you put a pearl between your teeth. Okay, so I've actually got a funny story too about that. I'm going to tell you the story. So last year it was our 30th wedding anniversary. This year we're 31 years married, but last year was our 30th wedding anniversary. And so of course, 30th wedding anniversary, you get pearls. So Jason got me pearls, and he got them in from, I don't know, Vietnam or somewhere. He'd gone this whole lot of hassle to buy me these beautiful pearls and beautiful earrings. And we're sitting in this restaurant having a romantic dinner, you know how it goes, like it's all lovely and looking into each other's eyes, and it's all really sweet. And he takes out this jewelry box and he pops it open, and there's these beautiful, gorgeous white pearls and earrings and necklace. And instead of me going like, "Oh, honey, these are beautiful," I lift the pearls up and instantly put them in my mouth. And he's like, "What the heck are you doing?" I was just like, I'm just checking they're real. It wasn't undo the romantic moment like in an instant. Yeah, they're really pretty on my teeth, There's something quite amazing about a pearl. Is that pearls are made by an oyster when a piece of sand gets in, a piece of grit gets in, and then they lay over layers of this beautiful iridescent pearl. But actually, even though it looks all shiny and beautiful, when you put it between your teeth, it's quite gritty. And I love that, because that's my life. My life feels gritty sometimes. There's sometimes there's the awkwardness and the grittiness and all of that we have. And it's actually okay. And that's why I love pearls, because it reminds me that my life, though there might be gritty things and uncomfortable things that I go through, God is still turning that gritty thing into something beautiful. And so in my life, so many of the stories of trauma and difficulty I've gone through, I look at it and I see God. It's like He was laying over this beautiful iridescent pearl. And yes, I still feel gritty and I can feel it. But actually I know that He's doing something beautiful, even in the midst of pain and difficulty. And so that was where I realized when I thought of that sand is that I could just focus on the fact that I've lost all my sparkle. Or I can go, Lord Jesus, even though I feel like a bit gritty and a little bit tossed on the waves and a little bit, all harassed, actually, help me to see the beautiful thing you're making out of this season. Help me to see that it's not hopeless. Help me to see that there's hope, even though I feel like I'm being tossed to and fro. You're making a beautiful pearl out of a difficult situation. And then the fourth thing I realized about this word was that the shell that remained still on the bed of the ocean, the second shell, you'll see the difference between them, not being tossed to and fro by the waves and along the sandy beach, retained its shine. Why? It says it in John 15. He says, remain in me, and I also remain in you. There's something profound about that principle of remaining in him that's really been catching me over the last few months. Remaining in him. It's a positional stance that we choose to take. It's not by accident. We make an intentional choice to remain. Remain means to abide and to dwell. And the implication is that it's not a one-time occurrence. It's about something that is ongoing. It's an everyday choice that I make. I will remain in you. I will stay still in you. I will rest in you. I will put my hope in you. There's something about making a choice every day to live in that positional stance. And there are many things that, if you're like me, can take you in 1,000 directions. But he says, remain in me, and I'll remain in you. And I began to realize, oh wow, I've lost my sparkle because I've been rolling up and down that sandy beach and getting all the stuff taken off me because I've not known how important it is to be still. And lastly, the psalmist David, he often writes in his psalms from a place of deep distress and longing. He's overwhelmed with his circumstances. He feels as though he is drowning in sorrow and despair. I'm sure we've all read those psalms. Psalm 42:7 says, deep calls to deep in the roar of your waterfalls. All your waves and breakers have swept over me. Yet in this cry there is incredible hope. Deep cries to deep suggests that our deepest needs are actually, and longings are actually met in the depths of God's presence. And this is what I want to linger on. Our deepest needs are and longings are actually met in the depths of God's presence, in that still place where that little shell sat quietly on the bed, not being tossed to and fro. I was thinking of the ocean's depths when I was praying around this, and how vast and immeasurable and large they are. I mean, I don't know if you guys love the ocean. I love the ocean. But I can't even get my head around the expanse of it, how big and deep and wide it is. And there's a place called I hope I got to pronounce it, the Marianas Trench. And it's 35,814 feet deep. And then we have the highest mountain on the earth, which is Mount Everest, which is 29,029 feet. But if you were to submerge the Mount Everest into the Marianas Trench, it would still be nearly 7,000 feet below the surface. I mean, that's like mind-blowing, right? And this got me thinking of the incredible depths of God's love for us. That in that massive, deep place of residing, we are covered by the depths of His love. That's beautiful for me. There's a covering over. And when even I feel battered and bruised and hurting and bewildered and all those things, in the place of stillness and stopping and resting in His love, we are covered by thousands and thousands of feet of God's love, if we look at it in those terms. When I was a little girl, I used to go diving with my dad. I've got about 5 minutes left, haven't I? About 5 minutes, how long do I have? 7 minutes, okay. My clock says 29 minutes and 53 seconds, so I'm going to put 7 minutes on that. I remember diving with my dad. He used to do spearfishing and getting lobsters, crayfish we called them. And I'd go diving with him, and there was something so almost magical about being in the depths. It was so still. And I just remember just floating along, and I'd be watching him do his thing, and I'd be diving with him, and there was just this stillness. There's something about the stillness of being in the depths with God that I think He's calling His church back to. Away from the hectic, away from the running around, and He wants to give us back our sparkle. God's presence is a refuge, a place where our souls can find rest and renewal. You know, as I walked that beach on that morning, God spoke so gently to me, like that whisper of the wind, crashing of the waves, and He said, I'm calling my church and I'm calling you to deeper places. And I'm calling you to sit and reside and live in the greater depths. Not on the sea, not on where the ocean breaks, where the sand is. I want you to live in the depths. So I'm asking, I suppose, this question of myself that I ask of us all today is, how do we respond when deep calls to deep? Are we too busy to go and sit in the deep places? Are we too jaded and washed up to notice even? Are we just so lost our sparkle that we don't even really care anymore? Or are we allowing the gritty things in our lives just to discourage us? The discouragements, the frustrations, the irritations, the bothers. Is that the thing that's defining us? For me, I had to get honest with God about my struggles. I had to get real and say, yeah, right now, I don't have much sparkle. But the psalmist, when he prays, he doesn't hide his anguish. He brings it before God in raw honesty. But he doesn't remain in that place of brokenness. He says, God, take me to this place, or take me to higher places. And so, I suppose the second thing is that we need to learn to seek His presence in times of trouble. It's so easy to turn away from Him when we're in times of trouble. Or maybe it's just me. But I know that when I'm struggling, my tendency is to retreat and to feel broken and wounded, and I don't even know how to get back to God. But God is calling us in times of trouble to go back to that deep place, to sit at His feet, and to allow His love to wash over us. Thousands and thousands of whatever, of His love. And finally, we must trust God in His unfailing love. Even when we cannot see a way out, and I've had many of those, many seasons in my life where I've been up against a wall, we need to know that God is trustworthy and faithful. Deep calls to deep is a reminder that our deepest cries are heard by a God whose love and grace are deeper than what we can imagine. In our moments of despair, we can turn to Him knowing that He is our refuge and strength. Psalm 130 says this, verse 1 to 2, out of the depths I cry to you, Lord. Hear my voice, let my ears be attentive to my cry for mercy. Out of the depths I cry to you. Maybe you need to cry out of the depths to God today. Maybe you're feeling bewildered and overwhelmed. Maybe you're feeling just gritty and annoyed and irritated. Maybe you've lost your sparkle. Maybe you're not shining like you used to. Well, God wants to bring you back to that place. Finally, I want to leave you with this promise from Isaiah. It says, Isaiah 43 says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. When you pass through those waters, I will be with you. So I suppose my simple challenge to us today is, if you've lost your sparkle, if you've lost your shine, if you just feel a bit dull, the place we find our sparkle is in those deep places. Coming back to simply being. Simply being. I know you've probably heard this message a billion trillion times. I'm not saying anything profound or new. But if you're a bit like me, like that Martha, who runs around doing things, perhaps it's time to say, Father, teach me to be more like Mary. Teach me to stop and sit. Teach me to be still. Teach me the art and the profound gift of stillness. And that's why with my work, I start with my clients with a stop sign. I give them something to say, and most of them aren't even believers. They don't even know I'm doing biblical stuff with them half the time. I just say there's something about stopping and being perceptive to our own struggles, our internal dilemmas that we deal with every day, taking note of those, and then allowing God to come and wash over them with His extraordinary love, with the weight of His presence. I think they say that if there's certain places you go down under the depths of the sea, that if you actually went down without a submersible, you would be crushed. Isn't that right? And actually your bones would be turned to almost like water because it's so heavy, right? The weight of the water is so heavy that you will be crushed. But there's something really beautiful about knowing the weight of His presence doesn't crush us. It doesn't break us. It restores us. It strengthens us. So maybe this morning, Paul, I don't know if you want to say anything, or Christine, you want to say anything. But I really have a sense maybe for us to just take some time. I think the worship team can come up, maybe play, just tinkle on the keyboard or something. Maybe just give God time. Maybe you need to just stop and say, Lord, what are my committed places? What are the places that I've allowed myself to lose my sparkle? What are the places that I've given permission, even to the enemy, to take away my joy, to take away the life that God has put in me?